Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. We are continuing a slow trek through the book of Exodus, examining each paragraph of the book to see what its literary design is, what are the theological themes, what do we need to know about the historical context. I'm so glad that you've decided to join me. If you haven't taken a moment to subscribe to this channel, I would encourage you to do that so that you don't miss any content. I am nearing the end of writing a commentary on the book of Exodus for Baker Academic. I started 6 or 7 years ago, and this channel has been so helpful to me. Your comments, your engagement has helped me to circle back and revise my work. Just making these videos has been such a joy because it's given me a chance to go through it again and ask myself, now what's worth sharing in this commentary? So thank you for joining me for this. I'm Dr. Carmen Imes, Associate Professor of Old Testament at Biola University. Today we are picking things up in chapter 26 with the construction of the curtains that actually form the tent that we call the tabernacle, or Yahweh's dwelling. I'm going to be reading first from my own translation from the Hebrew, from Exodus 26 verses 1 through 14, and then we'll unpack what's going on here. As for the dwelling, you shall make 10 curtains of fine twisted linen, blue, purple, and crimson cherubim, the work of a first-class weaver. You shall make them. The length of one curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the width of one curtain 4 cubits, one measurement for all the curtains. 5 curtains shall be joined, each to her sister, and 5 curtains joined, each to her sister. You shall make blue loops on the lip of one curtain at the end of the set, and likewise you shall make loops on the lip of the end curtain in the second set. 50 loops you shall make on one curtain, and 50 loops you shall make on the end of the curtain that is in the second set, matching the loops each to her sister. You shall make 50 gold clasps, and you shall join the curtains, each to her sister with the clasps, and it shall be one dwelling. And you shall make curtains of goat hair for the tent over the dwelling. 11 curtains you shall make. The length of one curtain shall be 30 cubits, and 4 cubits the width for one curtain, one measurement for 11 curtains. You shall join 5 of the curtains alone, and 6 of the curtains alone. You shall double over the 6th curtain at the front face of the tent. You shall make 50 loops upon the lip of one curtain that is at the end of the set, and 50 loops upon the lip of the curtain in the second set. You shall make 50 bronze clasps, and you shall put the clasps upon the loops and join the tent, that it may be one. Now for the excess remaining of the 10 curtains, the half curtain that remains, the excess shall be at the rear of the dwelling. Now this cubit and that cubit of the remainder of the length of the tent curtains, the excess shall be over the sides of the dwelling, here and there, to cover it. You shall make a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, and a covering of fine leather on top. Okay, this is a complicated set of instructions about how to make the tent where Yahweh will dwell, or that symbolizes Yahweh's dwelling among them. The scriptures are clear that Yahweh cannot be contained in a tent, but he wants to move into the neighborhood, as it were. The word mishkan is the Hebrew word for this tent, this dwelling, and it comes from the verb shakan, to dwell. So a mishkan is a place where one dwells. There are a number of different fabrics involved, and you can see here the Bible Brick Sanctuary that I've been using as my visual aid for this series. You can see there are various layers of coverings over the tent, and those are the layers that we've just read about. I'm not entirely sure what they had in mind with this colored layer and then the white, if that's a decoration on the white layer, if those are 2 different layers. But then you can see the ram skins dyed red and the premium leather on top. So perhaps these are the 4 layers. Now, the underneath layer is the most elaborate. It's made of sheish, which is an Egyptian loan word for fine quality linen. It's the best linen. And it is embroidered or woven in with cherubim, with figures, winged figures, the same cherubim that we saw on the lid of the Ark of the Covenant, or the covenant chest. So it's worth noting that there are 3 different layers of weaving quality that we see in the tabernacle instructions. This one is the highest level, and the word in Hebrew is choshev. So a choshev is a kind of weaving where figures, multicolored figures, are woven into it or embroidered onto it. Embroidery is a new skill in New Kingdom Egypt. It was beginning to be used for royalty, but nobody else was using that. So it's possible that these are embroidered. For those of you not familiar with with various terms for sewing, I grew up in a house where my mom sewed all sorts of things, and my grandmothers did as well. So this is a shawl, a beautiful shawl given to me by my friend that has embroidery on it. So these flowers are not part of the fabric itself. They're sewn on top of it, on top of a complete sheet of fabric. So it's possible that they made a complete sheet of this fine linen and then embroidered on top of it figures of cherubim like this with multicolored threads. That's one possibility. I think it's more likely that the cherubim were actually woven into it like you would see with a tapestry. I have another scarf here where the design is woven in. It's not sewn on top of it, but this is the weave itself. And you can see it's double-sided. When it's woven in, then it becomes double-sided. I'll show you. You can see the figures on the back side of this one, but they're not the same quality. Like this is not the side meant to be seen. This is the front. So it's possible that a choshev is like a tapestry weave where the cherubim are woven right into it. The other two levels, which we don't see in these particular instructions, are rokaim. Rokaim is multicolored but with no figures, so this would qualify as rokaim weave. There's a design, but there's not like figures of cherubim or other creatures. And then oreg is a single colored fiber with no design. So just a plain, like my suit jacket would be oreg because it's woven of just one color of one kind of fiber in only one color, and the whole thing is uniform. So we see this with the high priest robe. The high priest robe is oreg. It's just blue. So it was still fabulously expensive because of the dyed wool that was being used for it. But his chest piece and apron were made of the higher level of rokaim because it was multicolored, including all the different colored threads that were available to those doing the construction. Okay, so we have skilled weavers of various levels who've been trained how to do this kind of work. Now, we know that the ancient looms had a limit of 6 feet in width, which is 4 cubits. So again, as a reminder, a cubit is the distance from fingertip to elbow, about 18 inches. So each panel that they made was 28 cubits by 4 cubits, which would then create a strip that would go all the way across and hang down on either side, almost to the ground. There would be a little gap underneath these layers. The first layer would not reach all the way to the ground. There would be a cubit left on either side. But the second layer of goat hair was 2 cubits longer, so it would reach all the way to the ground on either side. So it would completely encase that first layer. So the first set is 5 of these long strips are connected to make a panel. And this panel is massive because it covers half of the tabernacle. And it would have measured 42 feet by 30 feet total. And then 2 of those panels connected together with these gold clasps. You notice we talked in a previous video about the gradations of holiness and the gradations of materials. So you can see the highest quality fabric is close to Yahweh's presence, the first layer of the tent, and it has gold. The second layer is goat hair. It's also woven, but there's no designs, there's no multicolored fabrics. It's just simple. And it has bronze clasps connecting the 2 sets together. So we can see that the further away you get away from God's presence, the less elaborate the construction supplies are. Looms that could make these 6-foot wide panels, and that virtually you could just keep on going forever. There's no limit to the length of the fabric that you can make at that width. These looms were called ground looms, and they were easily transported. They used pegs to anchor the whole project to the ground, and so it wasn't a huge apparatus that had to be transported. So it's very realistic. These were common in ancient Egypt. As I said, the goat hair layer, that second layer, which would have been probably brown or black even, because it was the natural fibers of goat hair that were woven together, spun into yarn and then woven to make this layer. This one was a little bit wider so that it would go all the way to the ground. And there's also an extra strip added so that there's excess. And there's some debate about how this would have worked. Either the extra panel would be folded up at the front, so you'd fold it back, and it would, maybe that's what they're doing here to reveal the multicolored layer beneath, or it would be folded around under to protect that layer so that no one could see it, or it could be hanging over the top edge of the entrance to Yahweh's tent. So those are all possibilities, but because of that extra sixth panel in one of the sets, you would have a little bit of excess at the front and at the back. And at the back, it would probably hang like onto the ground, and then at the front it'd be folded back in some way. We actually have no idea how they were hung on the frames. Were they inside or outside of the frames? Did they have some kind of clasps, or were they just draped over the frames? This is not clear from the text, but the people would have just known because Moses saw a model and explained it to them, and he could coach them on how to do it. Finally, there are two leather layers on top in verse 14. The first one is of ram skins dyed red. This was pretty common to have red dyed leather in the ancient world, especially in ritual contexts. This is true among the Arabs as well as among Egyptians. There's some examples in each place. They would have been dyed red probably with the madder plant. And then the last layer is one that's been highly debated. It's tehashim, and the tehashim has been translated as unicorn, sea cow, badger, premium goat leather. Some have suggested that it's a beaded technique, that it was covered with beads, or that it was orange. There's been all sorts of proposals. Definitely it's not badgers or unicorns. It's possible that it was sea cow. I think the most likely solution to the problem was proposed by Benjamin Noonan when he noticed that there's an Egyptian word for leather, tahash, and that this word tahashim could denote the process or the finished product of a certain type of tanning of that leather. So it seems to be probably a fine Egyptian leather to make a final waterproof outer layer to protect the tent and everything inside it. So what's the takeaway? God's people live in tents. They are traveling through the wilderness. And so God does not ask them to build a temple that's going to be stationary. He wants to travel with them. So he has them build a portable tent with portable furnishings. This symbolizes his desire to be with them, but the quality of the products also symbolize the majesty of the divine resident. So we can learn so much from seeing what care God puts into these instructions. Join me next week to talk about the frames or supports or beams or panels or whatever we call them that hold up the tent. We'll talk about the debates about that and what is most likely. Have a great week.